Welcome to ETF Leaders, powered by the New York Stock Exchange. Joining me today is Michelle Cluver. She is the portfolio strategist at Global X. Michelle, wonderful to see you. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
So Michelle, tell me, what are your expectations for the markets for the second half of 2022?
So when thinking about the markets for the rest of this year, I think it's very important to start by actually looking at economics and the economic expectations for the rest of the year. So what we've been looking at a lot in the first half was obviously the Fed. But what's starting to become more important is actually economic growth expectations. And the concerns of, are we going into a recession? And if we are, how bad would it be? And so when thinking about this, we're looking at a variety of different shock factors. And we're thinking, well, they're actually not synchronized. When you think about other economic events, you've had synchronized shock factors that create negative feedback loops. Well, this is something that we're not seeing to the same extent currently. And so that points to, while we are still concerned about the economy and slowing growth, we don't think that it's as bad as prior events. And so at the moment, we're also thinking about the Federal Reserve, as that's been one of the areas that can create the recession. And what we've seen is a lot of the last 4 months, the first 4 months of the year, there's been an extreme ramp up of expectations on the Fed. But we believe that that's actually front-loaded a lot of the expectations, and we're going to have that 50 basis points coming up in June as well as July. But then it could actually create opportunity for improved flexibility into the second half, which would be really good for markets. And so it creates an environment where there's potentially improved expectations for markets going into the second half, where you'll be needing to focus on the economy, but less so the Fed having as large an impact.
Okay. All right, so Michelle, tell me, do you have a favorite ETF in your lineup?
That's a wonderful question, and at Global X we have such a diverse array of products spanning all the way from thematic equity to alternative income as well as commodities. When we're thinking about a favorite ETF, it's more thinking about what is our favorite ETF for the current market environment. So when I'm thinking about that currently, we actually have two that I'd like to draw attention to, and they both actually talk to our economic views at the moment. So inflation protection is a key part of our economic views currently, and within that space, MLPA is a key area of interest. But on the other side, with the concerns about economic growth, quality dividends and QDIV is a key area that we'd also like to draw attention to.
Okay. All right, and then finally, how should we be thinking about equity income?
So that's a great question. Equity income has been such an interesting area year to date, with higher interest rates increasing the focus on your current income rather than your future growth potential. But one of the key areas of concern with equity income portfolios is they can become highly concentrated in key areas. So when thinking about equity income, it's really important to ensure diversification across exposures as well as across yield. At Global X, we actually have an equity income portfolio that includes a variety of different areas focused on equity income in order to get a strong foundation that can withstand most economic conditions. And so that's really important, to set that strong foundation that can potentially withstand economic slowdown, and then augment the yield with additional positions, such as having your much higher yielding exposures, as well as areas such as covered calls, which are impacted by different factors relative to common equity. And preferred is also another area where you can also augment your yield as well as change your yield sources.
Okay. All right, Michelle, wonderful to talk with you. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. It's been wonderful to chat with you today as well.
And that's ETF Leaders, powered by the New York Stock Exchange.